industries, where technological advances are daily suppressed, locked away in safes, so profits may not be diminished by the expensive retooling necessary to put these advances into effect? Or is it in a field closer to my own, in chemical research, pure science if you like, where truly secrets are shared on an international scale, in order to build up the cartels which choke production by increasing prices and promote those industries which thrive on international ill will? Assemblyman Brown rose to his feet and said in measured tones, "This woman is a paid agent of the Communist International. I have heard such rantings from demagogues on street corners. I demand the committee listen to no more of this propaganda." Mr. Miller gave a polite wave of his hand toward the Assemblyman, indicating at once full agreement with what the legislator said, and apology for pursuing his questioning of Miss Frances. He then asked the witness sternly, "What is your real name?" "I'm afraid I don't quite understand. The only name I have is Josephine Spencer Francis, and so far as I know it is thus written on my birth certificate." "Birth certificate, eh? Where were you born? Speak up, don't mumble!" "Russia, without a doubt," muttered Assemblyman Brown. "You're sure it isn't Francisky or Franciscovitch? Or say Finkelstein?" "My name is not Finkelstein, although I do not find myself terrified of that combination of syllables. I was born in Moscow." Another sensation. "I thought so!" screamed Judge Robinson triumphantly. "Aha!" exclaimed Senator Jones profoundly. "The leopard doesn't change his spots or the red his or her color," asserted Assemblyman Brown. "A saboteur!" yelled several of the spectators. Only Dr. Johnson seemed unimpressed with the revelation. He smiled contentedly. "In Moscow, Idaho," concluded Miss Frances, picking her teeth with a flourish. Judge Robinson screeched, "I? What's all this hubbub?" Assemblyman Brown sneered, "A very unlikely story." Attorney General Smith wanted it proven in black and white, while Senator Jones remarked Miss Frances's taste was on a level with her scholarship. She waved the toothpick toward the chairman and politely waited for either further questions or dismissal. All the while, her intense interest in each gesture of the inquisitors and every facet of the investigation had not diminished at all. As she sat there patiently, her eyes darted from one to the other as they consulted, and only came to rest on Senator Jones when he spoke directly to her again. "And what steps can you take to undo this?" "So far, none," admitted Miss Frances. "But since this thing has happened, I have given all my time to experiment, hoping in some manner to reverse the action of the metamorphizer, and evolve a formula whereby the growth it induced will be inhibited. I cannot say I am even on the right road yet, for you must recall I have spent my adult life going, as it were, in one direction, and it is now not a matter of merely retracing my steps, but of starting out for an entirely different destination, in a field where there are no highway maps and few compass points. I cannot say I am even optimistic of success, but it is not for want of trying, be assured of that." Another semi-silence while the committee conferred once more. Finally, Senator Jones spoke in grave and measured tones. "It is a customary politeness in hearings of this nature to thank the witness for his helpfulness and cooperation. This courtesy I cannot with any sincerity extend to you, madam. It seems to me you have proven yourself the opposite of a good citizen, that you have set yourself up in your arrogance against all logical authority, and have presumed to look down upon the work and methods of men whose standing and ways of procedure are recognized by all sound people. By your conceit, madam, you have caused the death of young men, the flower of our state's manhood, who gave their lives in a vain attempt to destroy what your ignorance created. If I may be permitted a rather daring and perhaps harsh aside, I think this should strike you doubly. As a woman who has not brought forth offspring to carry on the work of our forefathers, and as one who, with doubtful taste, boasts of that sterility, I think the results of your so-called experiment should chasten you and make you heed the words of men properly qualified in a field where you are clearly not so." Someone in the back of the room applauded the senator's eloquence. "Senator Jones," said Miss Frances, turning her eyes on him with the attention I knew so well, the look which meant she had found an interest for the moment excluding all others, "you accuse me of what amounts to crime, or at least criminal folly, and I must answer that your accusations are at once both true and false. I have been foolish, but it was not in despising the constrictions and falsity of the academic world. I have flouted authority, but it was not the authority of the moving picture heroes, whose comic errors are perpetuated for generations like those of Pasteur, or so quietly repudiated the repudiation passes unnoticed like those of Lister, in order to protect a vested interest. The authority I have flouted in my arrogance, as you call it, is that authority all scientists recognized in the days when science was scientific, and called itself not boastfully by the name of all knowledge, but more humbly and decently, natural philosophy. That authority is what theologians term the will of God, others the life force, the immaterial principle, the common unconscious, or whatever you will. When I, along with all the academic robots whom you admire, denied that authority, we did not make ourselves, as we thought, men of pure science, but on the contrary, by deposing one master, we invited in a horde of others. Since we could not submit to moral force, we submitted in our blind stupidity, we called it the rejection of metaphysical concepts, to financial force, to political force, to social force. And finally, since there was no longer any reward in itself for our speculations, we submitted to the lust for personal aggrandizement in fortune, in notoriety, in caste-bound irresponsibility, and even for the hypocritical backslapping of our fellows. In the counter-revolution known as the 19th century, we even repudiated the name of speculation, and it became a term of disrepute, like metaphysical. We went further than a mere disavowal of the name, we disavowed the whole process, and turned with disgust from the using of our minds to the use of our hands in a manner which would have revolted the most illiterate of Carpathian peasants. We extirpated the salivary glands of dogs in order to find out if they would slobber without them. We cut off the tails of mice to discover if the operation affected their great-grandchildren. We decapitated, emasculated, malnourished, and poisoned rodents against whom we had no personal animus, for no other reason than to keep an elaborate apparatus in use. Even these pastimes failed to satisfy our undiscriminating appetite. Someone a little stupider, a little less imaginative, though such conditions must have been difficult indeed to achieve, invented what is called the control experiment, whereby, if theory tested be correct, half the subjects are condemned without trial to execution. These are my sins: that in despising academic ends I did not despise academic means; that in repudiating the brainlessness of the professorial mind I did not attempt to use my own. Because I was proud of the integrity which made me choose not to do the will of a research foundation or industrial empire, I overlooked the vital fact that I had also chosen not to do God's will, but what I stupidly thought to be my own. It was not. It was faint-heartedness, sloth, placation, doubt, vagueness, and romantical misconception. In a word, it was the aimlessness and falsity of the 19th century coming back in the window after having been booted out the door. My folly was a failure to recognize it. I have deluded myself,